Hey, what's up? My name is Ryan. In this video, we're looking at the game Composition. In Composition, you're going to be building words with cards in front of you and then drafting more cards to spell even more words and then drafting even more cards to spell even more words. Before I get too much into the review, let's look at the table here and I'll show you how it works. Alright, so here's how the middle of the table will look in Composition kind of set up here. This is not going to be a complete how to play the game. I just kind of want to show you how the different parts of the game work together so you can kind of get a good sense of how it works. Right here in the middle, these green cards are your note cards. These are the main cards you're going to be drafting throughout the game. Now I set up for a 2-player game here, so there's only 2 cards out here right now. There's also this wild card out here every single round, which can be any letter. These on the bottom here, these blue cards are the crescendo cards. These are more powerful. They cost 5 roses to buy, but they do some pretty cool things. So if you flip this one card over here, let's say you paid 5, got this card, you're gonna flip it over and see it's an X, which is a hard card to use, but it says double the score of your word. So your total score for your entire word is now going to be double because you bought that card. The next row up here are all these special challenges. This one here says create a performance with 8 letters or more. If you do that, then you get that card for free. We'll come back to these in a second. The top row here are the most powerful cards to purchase. They cost 20 roses to buy, but they're first of all pretty cool. This one here is a U. This one here lets you copy another letter in your performance. This is any consonants. There's an I and there's a Y. But why that's so cool is you'll also see there's a little lock symbol here. So this right here, this U, is a permanent card, or this consonant is a permanent consonant you will have for the rest of the game. Okay, so let's check out a player here. Let's say one of the players is playing owl. You always have your basic word you can spell. They could also, if they want to, just for fun, spell the word low. It would be the same difference. The character Owl also has a special ability, which we're not going to get into. Just know that every single character in the game has a little special bonus they can do. But during the drafting portion of the game, when you're building your composition, you're actually going to pick up extra letters. So you're not just going to build your basic word owl all the time. You can add letters to that. Let's say the other player in the game takes this U. So the U is now gone. You could take this wild here, but it actually costs 1 rose to do that. And you don't have any roses right now. So let's say instead you take this F. The other player takes the wild, and now the drafting portion of this round is over, and everyone spells the best word they can with what they have available. Well, in this example, it's pretty obvious. I could do foul. I could also do the word flow. So let's say I stick with the word flow. So this round, I'm going to score 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 roses. Okay, so I don't have my 7 roses. At the end of the turn, though, I use this F, and this F does not have a lock symbol, so it is now gone. I have to discard it. All these letters I also use, but they have a lock symbol on them. We would now set the next round and draw 2 more cards. So let me start our next turn. Let's say I take this A right here. The other player might take this G. And let's say just for fun, I want to spend 5 roses and go for a crescendo card. So these cards down here cost 5 roses, so I'll just spend 5. Then let's say I pick up this one right here. Then the other player is going to take this wild card, and now the drafting is over for this round. Now I can actually spell the word wax out of what I just now did, and this X I used from this crescendo deck says double performance. So this would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, double it, that would be 10. Now this actually wouldn't quite be worth it because I paid 5 for this X, and I'm just doubling 5 to 10, so I'm really just getting my roses back. So I might want to save this card for later. Now I moved some stuff off the screen to show you how this works. Again, I can always spell my basic word of low or owl again if I want to. I also can spell the word wax, but like I said, I spent 5 for this. I might not want to use it quite yet. The problem is the A and the X. Neither one of those has a lock symbol on them, so if I don't use them, they are gone. Except one exception. From round to round, you can carry over up to 2 cards. So let's say I do something like this. I could do the word owl again, or low. I can get my basic 3 roses again. Then these cards would have to be discarded because there's not a lock symbol on them, but you can hold up to 2 cards in what's called your chorus from round to round. So I'm going to leave those 2 cards there. So the next round I'm going to start out with these 2, my basic 3, and then I will still be able to draft more cards. Maybe next turn I'll have a pool of maybe 6 or 7 cards to choose from. Maybe use this X in a better way to really get this double performance and score even more. Now you can start to see where these cards across the top are so valuable and why they cost 20 roses, because for 20 roses you can get an A, but it's not just an A, but it's an A with a lock symbol. Also, they're going to be achieving some of these goals, like create a performance with 7 or more letters. So as they do those goals in their performance, they will get these cards as well. Just as soon as you complete one, and whoever the first one to complete one is, you get to get those letters. The game ends when either one of these rows runs out. The winner is actually the player that has the most yellow cards, because these yellow cards all have an applause badge on them. These red kind of ribbon things. The player with the most of those, which is a combination of all these permanent locked yellow cards and also the special yellow cards we got for doing unique things, the player with the most ones of those wins. If there's a tie, it's the player with the most roses at the end of the game. Alright, so that's how it works. Let's talk about things I like. The absolute best thing about composition is it's a game about spelling with a game. Here's what I mean. So many of these spelling games claim to be spelling games, but they're really just exercises in here's a bunch of letters, spell a bunch of words. And composition has a little bit of this idea of like deck building as well, where you're like, okay, what letters in general work better with these cards? And what cards do I save for next round over here? What bonuses are worth it for me to buy out here, do with my cards? And when do I take the risk and buy a crescendo card, which may be a difficult letter to use, or maybe an easy letter to use, but might give me a big bonus on my score? So what I mean by that is it's not just who can spell words the best, here's 20 letters, make some cool words, but it really digs into the whole, there's actually a game around it, there's something you're doing, there's something that engages you more so than just spelling words every turn. It also does asymmetry in a really cool way. So for example, everyone is a character, so you can be Mud, or you can be Cat, or you can be Ram, or you can be Sun. You start with those 3 cards, they're all 3-letter words, and you start with those 3 cards, and that is kind of your basic word. You can always spell your basic word. If nothing else, that's kind of your fallback. But since every turn you could be adding cards to those, if you have Mud, you're going to be drawing cards and typically using MU and D, or maybe rearranging and adding cards to it, and it makes your word you build very different than Ram. Ram is going to have RAM, and they're going to be adding letters to that word and trying to make words off of RAM. And like I mentioned, there's a lot of cards, like the crescendo cards you'll draw, and they'll have instructions like if you do this card in this way, or if you do exactly this, you get bonus points for that. It's nice that those cards and the rule book are written really, really clearly. This is actually the second game I reviewed by Matthew Hawker, and both of them, Bittersweet and this one, have really clear rule books and also cards with special things on them, and they're just clear, and it's so nice, especially for games like this that you might want to play with your family or with kids, people who aren't like used to reading special cards. If they're not clear, it's not fun for anyone, because everyone has to say, well, what's this mean? What's this mean? What's this mean? All the time. They're pretty obvious. Like, here's a W. If you use it by an S, double your points. So anyways, really nice when you have a clearly written rule book where you just definitely know how to play the game from reading the rule book, and also really clear cards to go along with that. Alright, so let's get into things I don't like about the game. Now, I'm actually going to spend more time in this section than I normally do in my reviews, because this is a genre of games, spelling words games, that I don't typically like really much at all. So I'm going to start out by addressing some of the common problems or things that I personally don't love about these games first. Then I'm going to talk about each one, how composition sort of addresses it, and in some cases fixes some of the things I don't like about. So I'm not being negative, I'm just saying that these are things I typically don't like about these games, and here's how composition deals with it. If you love these types of games, you already love Scrabble and you see no problems with Scrabble, then these things I say I don't like probably won't relate to you much. If you're a little like me and you have these common kind of hold-ups in games that are Scrabble-ish, then I think this will kind of help you out. So the first big issue with all these Scrabble type of games is there's knowledge outside the game that you have to come into the game with to be able to play the game, and you have to have quite a bit of that knowledge to be good at it. There's not a lot of things you can do in Scrabble if they're just better at that than you. You can't really focus on the game. You can't say, okay, maybe next time I should grab a few more resources. Maybe next time I should try this strategy. You're just sort of like, well, here's what I came up with, and they just come up with better words than you. So real quick summary, skills outside of games like Scrabble have a huge effect. It can make the playing field very uneven. And not that it's bad to lose games, but it could be games that you don't really even have a shot at winning. Now, what does composition do differently? This is actually the category that in composition does the best job of addressing this issue. It's that whole thing I told you, the game it creates around it. There's cards drafting available. There's, okay, I think if I can get a permanent E, that works well with my set of words. Now, you still have to have some skills. If you're really, really bad at spelling, it's still not going to be that fun for you. But it does sort of address that problem in that there's a little more strategy. And okay, I think I need to use my 5 roses to get this. Or maybe, you know what? I can get my base word next time, and that's the exact number of roses I need to purchase that special card up here. It's a permanent E for me. So there's a little bit more of a game going on there, which I think really does help address this issue up. It's just flat out who can spell the best. This actually has some strategy. I think people who maybe like some strategy in games can enjoy the fact that maybe trying to race for the S first has an advantage because most of us recognize that S is a much easier letter to use. Or maybe one of the special cards out there says whoever can use a 6-letter word first, so okay, I should really get an S because S is very easy. Or a word that starts ends with the same letter. Okay, I'm kind of trying to build my deck up and get a T. So there's just more decisions to be made in the game that are outside of just straight up who can spell words. Okay, so second common problem in these sort of Scrabble games is as the game gets closer and closer to the end, it can really grind to a halt. So my typical experience with Scrabble is the game's fun. Then as you get to like the last 20% of the game or 10% of the game, when people start realizing, okay, I have to score at least this many points to win. And then it just becomes everyone staring at the board, trying to think of the best word possible. And whatever player can pull out the word haberdashery or something, they win the game because they thought of haberdashery, but it might have taken them 10 minutes to get there, but they won. Now, to be fair, this is some people's favorite part of these games. They love it when it really comes down to, can I think of the perfect word that scores, I need to get 32 points, or maybe in composition, I need to get to 16 rows. If I get 16 roses, I can buy that card and I win the game. Some people would love that. I find it a little stressful. Now, like I mentioned, Competition did a pretty good job at addressing my first complaint about Scrabble-like games. The second one, it does an okay job at it. One thing it does is it gives you two ways to victory. There's the award cards and there's the ovation cards. If either one run out at the end of the round, the game is over. So you could win by just buying up all the powerful permanent letters that stay in your hand, but you can also win by fulfilling the requirements on all those unique cards like, have the same letter start or end your word, or have a word score 20-something points. But again, for me, the last few turns slow down, even in composition, more than I would like it. What happens is you end up having your 3 permanent cards you start with. You can have 2 cards in your chorus that you get to save, so it's 5 cards. Throughout the course of the game, let's say you've picked up 2 more permanent cards, maybe 3, so let's say up to 7 or 8 cards now. In your last turn, you might, with a bigger number of players, you might set out 9 cards to be drafted. So you go first. You're seeing there were 7 or 8 cards in your hand, and you know that some of the cards are out there of those 9 or 10 are going to be picked up by other players, but you can pick any one you want to start. So you're like, okay, there are 7 cards. How many combinations with 7 plus the 9 out there? There are just hundreds and thousands, right? I mean, it's fun. Again, some people live for those moments. For me, it just gets a little overwhelming. Now, the third problem with Scrabble and all Scrabble-like games, and I don't know the solution for this, is the dictionary. Now, Scrabble is so old, there is a Scrabble dictionary where you look it up and you say, boom, that word's in the Scrabble dictionary, that one counts. But as we all know, this also causes fights and arguments because well, why is that word in there? Well, it's a foreign word. Oh, so we're including foreign words? No. You can't include any foreign words, just the foreign words that we needed to use Q because Q is so hard to use. And then, include that one, but not this one, and not that one, but maybe this one over there. Composition simply says, hey, use an agreed upon dictionary. There's really not a way around it. It always tends to be one of these things that no one cares. It's all fun and games until someone really wants to win. And they're like, the first time someone brings out the whole your word doesn't count. And it's like, well, your word doesn't count. That's a proper noun. Well, it's a proper noun that also has a common use. All these issues. I don't know the solution for it. I don't think composition really solves that problem. I mean, you can just say, get a Scrabble dictionary or, find one online. And that's just the end all be all. It kind of has to be in these games. You have to have one dictionary. You just have to say whether or not we like it, we have to use words out of the dictionary. Okay, so recommendations. As I already mentioned, I don't like this genre in general. If someone said, hey, I have a game that's like Scrabble, and they started walking to their board game shelf, and I was in a situation where I felt like I had to play, I would just be so disappointed. But if they brought out this game, it would be such a breath of fresh air. Again, I really enjoy it, especially the early game of this, how there's a few of those things like the freebie word you can always have. When you first start the game, maybe you have your 3 core letters that already make a word, and you maybe get 1 or 2 more letters. So you're more going for just a little cleverness. Is there a way I can score points? Is there a way I can get this V in there to score points? I really like that part of the game. So if someone had this game on the table and I played it, I would have been very pleasantly surprised. I was very happy that it wasn't just your typical, here, take 20 letters, now spell word games. If you personally love Scrabble, I think this might be a slam dunk for you. It's like if you kind of want to play Scrabble, but there'd be a little more of a game. And also maybe you're someone who likes Scrabble. I think there are a lot of people who like Scrabble, but they don't like the fact that it can take an hour or more if everyone's really intense. This does help, again, especially early game, keep the game to a shorter length. One thing I used it for is I played it with kids, and they loved it too. It's a really good spelling game, especially I think if I did it with kids, I would shorten the end of the game, because I think the early game, especially with young kids, was great, because early game, again, you have that default word you can always spell, and then they're more thinking, oh, can I add a T anywhere, or just rearrange my 3 words and put a T in there, or sorry, 3 letters and put a T, kind of make a new word. It was a really good exercise in spelling words, how you can kind of manipulate them. Now, if you're like me and you don't like spelling games in general, I think Composition can kind of be a cool game if you at least somewhat enjoy them, because again, it gives you the spelling game. You can play with groups of people who like spelling games. I feel like you can teach this game really quickly to anyone. People who aren't board gamers can pick up on this game really quickly, especially people who already like crossword puzzles, they like Scrabble, like word games. They will get it pretty quickly and they'll catch on to it. But again, it gives you a little bit of that element of a game to it, so different groups of people can kind of come together and play it. So there you go. There's my review of Composition. A game that I'm not personally inclined to. I don't love spelling games, but I found the game elements really improve the experience over a typical word spelling game. And I also recently reviewed a game by the same designer, Matthew Hawker, called Bittersweet. So if you're interested, check it out now. It's a very different game and gameplay. It's not spelling at all. But you kind of like the design, the cuteness, kind of the family vibe of this game. I would really suggest checking that one out as well. And as always, if you found the video helpful and you enjoyed it, hitting the like button down below and subscribing to the channel really helps out.